Welcome to the LanguageCert Listening and Reading Test of English. This presentation aims to share with you the main features related to this English language qualification that you may wish to consider for your students. Here are the main points of this presentation. First of all, what is the LTE Listening and Reading Test all about and who is it for? Then, we'll focus on the various LTE tests and formats available. We'll carry on with more details about both skills being tested in this exam, and then clarify issues related to scoring, the assessment criteria used by the assessor, and grading. Finally, we'll share with you the support materials that have been created for both teachers and candidates, as well as how to contact us should you wish to send us any questions or need further clarifications. So, what is the LTE Listening and Reading Test all about? What does it assess? Well, the LTE Listening and Reading Test assesses the candidate's language proficiency, and in particular their listening and reading skills, across 6 levels aligned with the Common European Framework, that is to say levels A1 through to C2. It also aims to assess the candidate's language competence in the areas of English for general purposes and also English for professional purposes. There are no entry requirements prior to candidates taking the LTE test. That is to say, candidates do not need to have obtained any English language certification beforehand, for example, a B1 or B2 level certification in order to register. Now, who is the LTE listening and reading test for? Well, this test is aimed at non-native speakers of English, age 16 or more, who wish to acquire an internationally recognized certification of their English language competence, who wish to provide current or potential employers with information as to their English language level, who wish to monitor their own progress in learning English, and who wish to undertake a course of study at an English-speaking university or college and require evidence of their English language proficiency. The LTE listening and reading test is also a useful tool for employers. Employers who, for example, wish to identify the English language level of their applicants, or who wish to benchmark the English language level required for different positions within their workforce, or require an internationally recognized certification as part of their hiring process. Lastly, the LTE listening and reading test is a valuable assessment instrument for universities and colleges that need to establish the English language level of students to evaluate their ability to follow their chosen course of study, or wish to offer students a test which will provide them with an internationally recognized certification of their English language competence. Before moving on, do remember that there is also the LTE writing test available. Please note that these two tests, the LTE listening and reading test and the LTE writing test, are two standalone tests. Candidates do not have to take both of them unless, of course, they are aiming at achieving both qualifications. Also, regarding the format of both LTE tests, there are two formats available, paper-based and computer-based. Both formats of the LTE tests are identical in terms of content. The tasks assessed are identical. And both formats of the test lead to the same certificate. And one more point. There is no overall certification for candidates taking both the LTE listening and reading test and the LTE writing test. You will find useful information about the LTE writing test on our website. Okay, we've been referring to the LTE test, but do be aware that the LTE listening and reading qualification comprise different tests, not one. There's the paper-based A1-B1 level test, the paper-based A1-C2 level test, and also the computer adaptive A1-C2 test. So there are 3 different LTE tests, and these tests are available, as mentioned before, in 2 different formats, paper-based and computer-based adaptive. We'll clarify what we mean by computer-based adaptive in a moment. Now, who in particular are these tests for? The LTE A1-B1 paper-based test has been designed for candidates who need proof of a lower competency in English or for absolute beginners who need to monitor their progress. The LTE A1-C2 paper-based test is geared towards candidates who aim for B2 level and above. And the LTE A1-C2 computer adaptive test, which is identical to the paper-based test in terms of content, but which adjusts in real time to the candidate's level. Before we move on, just a few words about computer adaptive tests. Computer adaptive tests are tests designed to adjust the difficulty of questions presented to the candidate to their personal level, that is to say, according to their performance during the test. This ensures that, for example, when the LTE A1-C2 test is taken in the computer-based format, the number of questions and in turn the test duration are reduced compared to the paper-based test. The duration of the computer adaptive test is approximately 60 minutes only, although a maximum of 90 minutes will be given to the candidate. In all cases, the results and certificates are exactly the same as if the candidate had taken the paper-based format of the LTE test, and the certificates are equally recognized. Getting now into further detail, what exactly does the LTE listening and reading test require candidates to do? Well, the listening tasks require the candidates to listen for a variety of real-life or work-related purposes, for gist of a whole extract, for a specific tale, for the speaker's opinion, and to a range of spoken materials such as spoken utterances, dialogues, podcasts, longer conversations, interviews, and talks. As far as the reading tasks are concerned now, the candidate will be presented with short and long authentic text on general or work-related topics. What will be assessed also is their understanding of the main idea of a text or their ability to look for and find specific information or line of argument within the text. What will also be assessed is their understanding and awareness of language. There will be items focusing on vocabulary and lexicogrammatical knowledge. Now, let's look at some examples taken from both the listening and reading components. On these slides and on the slides that follow, you will find samples of all parts of the LTE listening and reading test on the right, and on the left, more details about the task type, the focus of the task, the number of items, and so on related to each part. So let's start off with listening part 1. On this slide, on the right, you can see the first part of the listening component. The rubric asks the candidate to listen to some sentences and choose the correct answers. Candidates are presented with discrete multiple-choice items with visuals. The items focus on the candidate's ability to understand key information in short spoken utterances, and candidates need to identify the correct word or image that matches what is heard. 3 options, A, B, and C, are provided, and all utterances, all of which are short, are heard twice. The second part of the listening component presents candidates with a task that requires them to hear some sentences and choose the best reply. Here, the focus is on their ability to understand the functional use of a single utterance heard in daily life or in work-related contexts. The candidates need to identify the most appropriate functional response, and 3 options are provided with 5 or 6 utterances depending on which test they are taking. All utterances are heard twice. Moving on to the next part of the listening test, here candidates are provided with discrete multiple choice best reply items to end or continue a dialogue. The focus is on their ability to recognize context, meaning, and functional relationships in short dialogues. They need to identify the most appropriate response to continue or finish the conversation. 3 options are provided, and candidates listen to 10 incomplete dialogues if they take the A1-C2 paper-based format of the test. All dialogues are heard twice. Please note that this type of task is not part of the A1-B1 paper-based test. Moving on to the next part. This task asks candidates to hear short conversations and identify the most appropriate response. There are 2 multiple choice items each time. Here, the focus is on the candidate's ability to identify specific aspects, for example, the opinion, the attitude of speakers, in short conversations on everyday or work-related topics. 3 options are provided once again, and there are 4 conversations for candidates taking the paper-based A1-B1 test, and 6 conversations for those taking the paper-based A1-C2 test. All conversations are heard twice. The last part of the listening test asks candidates to hear someone talking, identify the correct answers to the question set. The focus is on the candidate's ability to listen for specific information in a longer text and identify certain aspects such as attitudes, purpose, any agreement or disagreement. They will be presented with a longer monologue or dialogue. 3 options are provided each time, and 5 items are set per monologue or dialogue. There will be 2 monologues or dialogues for candidates taking the A1-B1 paper-based test, and 3 monologues or dialogues for those taking the A1-C2 paper-based test. All monologues or dialogues are heard twice. This slide concludes the examples we shared with you related to the listening test. The first part of the reading test requires candidates to answer discrete multiple-choice questions related to signs, notices, or short messages. The focus here is on their ability to understand the main idea of very short texts and, in the case of a computer adaptive test, may also assess awareness of grammar and lexicogrammatical structures. Candidates need to choose the option that best describes each situation or best fills the gap. There are 8 short texts for candidates taking the A1-B1 test and 7 short texts for those taking the A1-C2 test. 3 options are provided each time. The second part of the reading test asks candidates to read short text or extracts and complete the gaps by choosing the correct option provided. It aims to assess their awareness of vocabulary, collocations, and lexicogrammatical structures. There are 3 gapped texts in both the A1-B1 test and A1-C2 paper-based tests. Each short text is followed by 5 multiple choice items and 3 options are given each time. This part of the reading test requires candidates to read the gapped sentences and choose the correct word to fill the space. The focus here is on their awareness of vocabulary, collocations, and lexicogrammatical structures. Candidates need to read single sentences and choose the correct option that best fills the gap. There are 7 gapped sentences for candidates taking the A1-B1 paper-based test and 23 gapped sentences for candidates taking the A1-C2 paper-based test. 3 options are provided each time. The last part of the reading test presents candidates with longer texts. They are requested to read the text provided and choose the correct answer for each question. The focus of this task is on detailed understanding of information, opinions, and writer purpose. Candidates choose the correct response from multiple choice options. Each text is followed by 5 multiple choice items. There are 2 long texts for candidates taking the A1-B1 paper-based test and 3 long texts for those taking the A1-C2 paper-based test. 3 options are provided every single time. All right, so far we have referred to what the LTE listening and reading test is all about, who it is designed for, the different LTE tests and formats available, and now let's share some more details about their structure. These 2 charts summarize the main points related to the structure of the test. You can see details related to the 2 components, their duration, the number of parts of each, as well as the number of items per section. The top chart relates to the paper-based format of the test, while the lower chart relates to the computer adaptive test. Please note that the adaptive tests have different timings as the tests are individualized. The maximum duration of the computer adaptive test is 90 minutes, but the test ordinarily takes approximately 60 minutes. For lower levels, the test may take slightly less time. Let's look now at how the test is scored. Candidates taking part in the paper-based or computer-based format of the test receive a score per skill. That is to say, 1 score for listening and 1 score for reading. All scores are within a scale from 0 to 100, with an indication of how these scores translates into an English language level. The LTE test scale is aligned to the 6 levels of the Common European Framework. Candidates also receive an overall score, once again stretching from 0 to 100, along with a corresponding CFR level. The overall score and language level are established based on the candidate's performance in listening and reading. Scores for each of the 2 parts of the exam are equally weighted. Please note that candidates whose performance falls below A1 do not receive a certificate. On the left, you can see the candidate's statement of results. There is reference to the skills assessed, that is to say, listening and reading, the score awarded for each one of them, and the overall score. As mentioned before, all scores are out of 100. Next to each score, there is also the CFR level the candidate has managed to attain per skill and overall. In the middle, you can see a sample of the e-certificate candidates receive, and on the right, the digital badge they also receive, which they can use for their social media, CV, etc. And now let's look at the support material we have created for you and for your students. Here are the key resources that should prove useful while you are preparing your students for their LTE test. All of them are readily available on our website and all are free of charge. The qualification handbook is probably the most important document to refer to. It provides a summary of all LTE tests with the skills and sub-skills assessed, the format of all LTE tests, the task types to be expected, the duration of the test, and so on. You will find our official practice papers, all with their audio recordings, detailed transcripts, and key for the teacher. The LTE Teacher's Guide, which offers sample practice questions, additional practice tasks, exam preparation tips and strategies, supplementary resources, and more. The LanguageCert Test of English practice book for A2 and B1, which helps candidates prepare for their LTE test, and the Teacher's Book, which provides extra information and the key suggested answers for the teacher. Finally, you will also find answer sheets, which you can share with your students while they are preparing for the paper-based version of their LTE test, so that they can feel more confident, more comfortable on their exam day, gain time, and so on. Lastly, on our website, you will also find information about our academic webinar program, which includes a few presentations about the LTE suite of exams, a detailed FAQ section for those of you who are new to the LTE test, books from publishers that you can use to prepare your students for the LTE test, as well as our academic support team for your queries about academic matters. Just drop us a line with your queries, if any, and we'll get back to you with information you need. For any academic queries, you may contact us at the following address: academicsupport@languagecert.org. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you found it helpful. Good luck to your students when the time comes. Goodbye for now.